Welcome back to my Road to Marvel's Black Widow series. This week we're on week 6, which means we're talking about the Avengers, or as they call it in the UK, Avengers Assemble. So same as we've done every single week now leading up to this movie, we're going to start off talking about the cast. We've got 2 new cast members, well, major cast members, a lot of background characters, but there's also one cast member who wasn't really in the other movie, so I'm going to count him as a new introduction. So first up, we do have Kobe Smulders playing Maria Hill, and I've never really been a big fan of the Maria Hill character. Now, she's been good in some movies, like she's been good in Winter Soldier as well as Age of Ultron, but her in this movie alone, actually no, she's also in Far From Home, which I like her in that, so I think it's just this movie in general. I'm just not really a fan of Maria Hill. I think it's because they give her a bit too much screen time, and she doesn't really play it off that well as well. I'm not really a massive fan of Kobe Smulders, so that might be kind of something why I'm not really a fan of her character in this movie. Also, we do have Mark Ruffalo playing the Hulk, which I like him as the Hulk. He kind of, in this movie here, he plays up a horror element a lot, especially when he turns into the Hulk on the helicarrier. I actually felt like it was horrific when he stares at Black Widow and his eyes look terrified. All the horror was pulled in the scene, worked really, really well for me. Now, I've said in my previous ones, I never really bought him as a scientist. I always thought Edward Norton kind of fit a scientist more. Now, in this movie, he feels like a scientist, but he just doesn't feel as much as a scientist as Edward Norton does. And in the previous movie, or in the later movies, in Age of Ultron he does, but later than that, he just does not seem like a scientist whatsoever, which kind of felt a bit disappointing to me. But in this movie alone, they do get the scientist element just about right, just not as well as you would like him to with the Edward Norton thing as well. We got Jeremy Renner. Now, of course, he was in Thor for a very small cameo, but because that was a real blink and you miss it kind of cameo, which I actually didn't catch the first time I watched Thor, I'm going to count him in this as a new character. And Jeremy Renner as Thor, or as Hawkeye, I like him in the role. He's not as good in this movie. He certainly gets better. I think Age of Ultron Civil War is when he gets really good, but for this movie I think he is fine. He spends a good portion of the movie being a villain, which was a weird choice to make one of your massive Avengers characters for the first movie into a villain. Kind of a weird choice to decide to go with that, but other than that, I think he's okay. He's not really, he chose a few jokes in there, none of them really land for me. But in general, the Hawkeye character, I think he certainly does get better. Every installment he actually seems to be getting better rather than like crap like he kind of is in this movie. So this movie kicks off and we get to see where the Tesseract has been. We get to see how Loki comes in. And how Loki comes in, it's pretty badass. It's pretty dark as well. Like, he's literally jumping from person to person, stabbing them, slashing them. It's pretty dark. I was kind of surprised because I haven't actually seen this one in about a year or so. So I was actually shocked to see how dark the introduction to this movie is. But besides the Loki killing, I kind of find the first bit of it more like an afterthought. It's like, okay, we have to start this movie somehow. We have to get Loki in the picture. And it just feels like it was very much of an afterthought to just have him in a base and quickly blow up the base. It feels very weird to start a movie. It doesn't feel like it's a good introduction to the Avengers, having him in a warehouse. Just personally, I don't really like the introduction to this movie. But then after the Avengers logo comes up, we do get our introduction to all our characters, and I think they all work really well. You got Black Widows when she's tied up to the chair and then she just destroys these guys while connected to a chair. You also got the Hulks when she which is also our introduction to Mark Ruffalo, when Black Widow goes out to some, I don't know where it is, but some town. It's not the best, it's probably the weakest out of all the introductions, but just as it is a pretty good introduction as well. Iron Man literally setting up the electrics for Stark Tower is pretty cool. And then Captain America having the flashbacks to, of course, the first Captain America movie. And then finally, Thor's introduction is probably the best one, where like they're flying in the helicarrier and all of a sudden Thor is lightning sparks and Loki's like, you know what, Cap goes, you're not a fan of thunder? And he goes, I don't like what comes after. And all of a sudden Thor lands on top of the helicarrier. Not the helicarrier, the Quinjet. It's by far the best introduction to any of these characters within this first movie. And the introduction to the helicarrier in this movie, every single time it puts a smile on my face, just to see like the shock with Captain America and Bruce Banner. Like, they think it's a submarine and they're like, really, this is a submarine? And all of a sudden it starts rising above, and it's such a great introduction to the helicarrier. I remember the first time I had no idea what was happening. I was like Captain America and Hulk going, is a submarine? And all of a sudden it goes in the air. I'm like, holy shit, that's genius. And I just think that introduction to that scene works really, really well. And you wouldn't, for something like that, something so minor, I just think they had it work really, really well. And then you go over, you see Captain America going to fight Loki, and the fight scene is okay. It's nothing great, but then all of a sudden Iron Man comes in and he blasts Hulk or Loki to the ground, which then plays up Loki's in the Quinjet, moves on. We get the Hulk, or not the Hulk, the Thor versus Iron Man versus Captain America fight, which is just, it's a lot of fun. It's especially fun to see like Hulk, or did it again, Thor blasting lightning at Iron Man and his suit gets powered up like ridiculously. It's just the whole scene. It is a lot of fun. Of course, you do have to have our heroes fighting against each other when they first meet, because they can't know if they can trust them straight away. So having them fight worked really well in this movie. And one of the strongest things about this movie is the back and forth our characters have. It all seems so organic. It seems like there was no effort put in. It seems like these were all actually just friends having the chats, talking around. And just so many lines, the quips back and forth. Like one of the most iconic lines is, of course, with Captain America and Tony Stark having that little like back and forth. And you know what? Here's the scene.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
I know guys with none of that worth 10 of you.
And then after that scene, we do get the attack on the helicarrier, which makes Hawkeye look a bit more interesting, the fact that he's able to do all this stuff. But then when you get Iron Man and Captain America fixing the helicarrier itself, it's always felt a little weird to me. It always felt more like a Lego Marvel, you know, the Lego Marvel Avengers game. It always felt like a level in that rather than a part of the movie. It goes on for a little bit, actually no, it goes on for way too long. It comes back and forth to them a lot, and it just goes on way too long for this movie. The fact that they're fixing a helicarrier doesn't really go that well. But also that's the moment when the Hulk gets released on the place and he's just tearing it apart. Thor comes in, they have a little bit of a fight, just a little bit of fight, and then you get the big fight in Thor Ragnarok. But the fight they have in this is pretty entertaining. You see actually later on the Hulk remembers that they had a fight, so he punches Thor in the head as later on in the movie, which just kind of, it's a nice little callback. It's really funny. And the whole scene with the Captain America and Iron Man, though, the thing that always stands out to me as well is Captain America's suit. His suit is terrible in this movie. I don't know why they thought, like, I get it, that actually Phil Coulson says, oh, we wanted to bring it back just a little bit of old school, like when he was Captain America was the poster boy, he had that awful looking suit on. But the fact that they brought it back for this movie looks really bad. It's horrible. Everyone else has got these great suits, like Thor, Iron Man, even Black Widow's suit, all look really cool. But you see Captain America in this god awful suit. Actually, you know what, I've got a figure of it here, and look at it. Isn't it just a terrible looking suit? Even the head, even in the movie, the head, and it makes sense why Chris Evans decided to take off the helmet so much, and he was just wearing his hair out, because this helmet looks really bad. I don't know why they just thought it would be a good idea to have that suit. Anyway, so back on topic, after the helicarrier gets sort of repaired, Coulson dies, which just hits really well. Even watching it last night, I was like, shit, even though I know he comes back and he gets like a 7-season TV show, this death hits really hard. Especially in this movie, because in Thor 2, or in Thor, Iron Man 2 and Iron Man, he's there, but he's more of a side character, especially in the first Iron Man, and he doesn't really get much range, and you don't really get to know much about him. But in this movie, they start giving little stuff about him, like you hear that him, Pepper Potts are talking, he's got a girlfriend out somewhere, he's like a massive fan of Captain America's, and then to see him die, it is really sad, especially when Nick Fury's talking to him. The emotion for that just hits really well. But then you also see Captain America and Tony Stark talking. Tony Stark realizes, oh crap, he's gonna use my tower to open the portal, so they make their way to New York, and that's where the Battle of New York happens, which is by far the best part about this movie. The first two acts, first act is good, second act I think kind of drags a bit on the helicarrier. I find the second act really drags a bit, but once the third act, once they get to New York, it is just balls to the wall crazy, and it's so much fun. First off, Iron Man comes to Stark Tower, he's having a little bit of back and forth with Loki, and he also has that another classic line,
I have an army. We have a Hulk.
And then when everyone's on the ground, you see Hulk's making his way over on the bike, and then Captain America goes, Banner, this might be a good time to get angry, and he just turns around. And again, this is just another, I have to show the scene again, it's hard to describe this scene.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry.
Why would anyone describe that scene and not just show it? Because that is, again, is just one of the most iconic moments from the MCU, and it's just such a great moment within this first Avengers movie. Just to see the little grin Bruce Banner gives, and then he just punches the big whale. It's just so great. And then you get the classic, and I mean classic, Avengers circle when they're all going around. Captain America gives kind of the little speech telling everyone where to go, and then it goes crazy, and then it goes great. They're going around fighting. Captain America's fighting, Black Widow is fighting, Hawkeye's on top of a building shooting arrows all over the place. Thor and Hulk are just going around. Iron Man literally goes inside a whale and explodes it from the inside. Just, it is so much fun. So much is happening, not to the extent that it does in Infinity War and Endgame, but for the first Avengers movie, it holds up really well. I remember after seeing Endgame, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I can go back and watch the first Avengers and still feel the stakes, just because the stakes are so low compared to what they are in future movies. But this movie still works really well, and the final climactic ending is so much fun. You have the nuke as well that comes up. Tony Stark puts it up in the big wormhole. It blows up, and then you have the... I wonder if people... I actually never got to see this in cinema, but I wonder if people ever wondered, is Tony Stark gonna make his way back down that wormhole just because like he's falling? You don't know until the last second if he does survive that, which I think works really well. And then he's falling, and the Hulk, I love the scene when the Hulk jumps up and grabs him and he puts him on the ground. All of that I just think is great. And he wakes up and he's like, let's get shawarma, and just whole scene I just think works great. And of course, they do capture Loki, and they start to make their way back to where the Bifrost is, which I've actually got a picture of it. I'll show you right now. Yeah, so I got to actually stand there in New York City, which was pretty cool. A lot of scenes from the Avengers, I actually kind of went around, got to see a lot of them as well, like Spider-Man, and I got to take a picture at the bridge from Home Alone 2. A lot of cool stuff in New York, but that one stood out to me in particular. As soon as I got there, I'm like, holy shit, this is from the Avengers, so I had to immediately get a photo there. So the Avengers, even though it's the first Avengers movie, even though it's one of the earliest, like we're on 23, I think, MCU movies now, this is the 6th one. It is still great. It's still iconic. So many great scenes, which I was actually surprised by, because I was thinking, as I said, I thought after seeing Endgame and Infinity War, this movie wouldn't be as good, but it's still great. It's still so much fun, and I actually, maybe not the first 2 acts now, but I want to sit down again and watch that 3rd act again, just because it is so much fun. But anyways, if you've seen the Avengers, which I'm assuming you have, if you're watching this series, you're at episode 6 now, of course you've seen the Avengers, but let me know your thought on the Avengers in the comment section down below. Click that subscribe button so you can come back next week when I do my review for Iron Man 3, which I'm actually excited to talk about that one, because that's a very divisive movie, so I'm looking forward to watching it again and talking about it. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that next week, click that subscribe button. But as always, thanks for watching.